to say as little as possible and get the program started. I want to say that music in all its forms has been an important part of Jewish life for hundreds of years, possibly as long as Jews have existed. And I'm sure, as we can see from Mark's comments, that today's program will rekindle many youthful memories for those of you who grew up in Winnipeg. Jewish Heritage Center is very pleased to organize this program, bring new perspectives, and update the book that Sharon Chisholm wrote almost a quarter of a century ago, connected to an exhibit called Our Musical Heritage, a Century of Jewish Musicians and Music in Winnipeg, that outlined Jewish involvement in jazz, rock, and specifically Jewish folk music, along with many other genres. Now I'm going to turn the program over to someone who really knows what he's talking about, Kinsey Posen. As a child, he spent countless hours sitting in front of his family, radio and record console. He fell in love with radio and music by exploring his father's vast record collection, and those passions fueled his future career. At the age of 14, after having been kicked out of school for having long hair, a problem that he seems to have solved, his parents offered a deal. If he would cut his hair, they would buy him an electric bass and amplifier, and the rest is history. Kinsey is a founding member of Canada's first klezmer group, Kinsey, along with his wife, Sheila Fink, and has appeared with symphonies across North America, as well as films and television shows. Kinsey was nominated for 2 Junos and won the Western Canada Music Award for the album Suite for klezmer band and orchestra, along with the Winnipeg Symphony. He's a former radio music producer for the CBC, where he spent 27 years recording and meeting many of his musical idols and creating a variety of programs, including the award-winning jazz program After Hours. He is forever grateful to his parents. Kinsey will run the rest of the program. I'll say less than a few words at the very, very end, so you know where you can get something to eat afterwards.
Okay, thank you, Dan. Thank you, Mark. Obviously, the hair is not an issue anymore, but I'm forever grateful for that. What's going to happen? We have 3 illustrious people with us. I'll introduce them shortly. Each one will give a presentation of 20 minutes or so, and then we'll take some questions from the audience, and then we'll have refreshments after that, and you'll have a chance to talk with people as well. We're very excited about the people that we do have, because it's truly Winnipeg history. So the first person I'd like to talk about is Owen, who's on your far left, my far right. Owen is a drummer, percussionist, vocalist, bass player, composer, arranger, historian, author, and former radio announcer. Owen's book Musical Ghosts, Manitoba Jazz and Dance Bands from 1914 to 1966, was published in March 2008. The Association for Manitoba Archives presented Owen with an award in recognition of excellence in the use of archives for his musical ghost research. Also, 2 television documentaries, Musical Ghosts and The Book of Vaudeville, were produced by NTS Television Winnipeg on demand and Farpoint Films. In May 2009, Owen was named the Manitoba Jazz Musician of the Year. He is currently the conductor and music director of the Winnipeg Pops Orchestra. Owen Clark. Leading next to Owen, of course, is Udow. Len is a singer, songwriter, musician, teacher, and music producer based in Winnipeg. He's enjoyed a 6-decade-long career traveling and performing on wide range of stages, from coffee houses and festivals to radio and television. Len played the Winnipeg Folk Festival in the early years and has returned there for a total of 7 years. Len lived in Toronto for many years back in the 60s and 70s, where he pursued his education in music, eventually finding his way back to Winnipeg, where he began to teach music like his mom, the great Udow. He's worked in the arts in the school program, and following his create music for and with children, and he's also been working many years alongside his third-grade parents. In recent years, Glenn has returned to his roots as a pastoral soloist at Visual, Temple Shalom, and has recorded 3 albums, Shabbat Shalom, Modeh Ani, Free Rick. And our final guest who will be speaking third is John Einarson. John started out as a rock musician here in the city, and his passion for the music led him to become an award-winning teacher, music historian, broadcaster, and author of 20 books and some 300 magazines and newspaper articles. His most recent book, which is really wonderful, Art of Gold, The History of Winnipeg Music, a detailed exploration of over a century of music evolution, a variety of genres, is currently in its 4th print. In January of 2016, John was the recipient of the prestigious Order of the Buffalo Hump by Premier Greg Bellinger in recognition of his extensive work in preserving Minnesota's history. He's also the recipient of the 2023 Order of Manitoba for an exceptional body of work with special attention to pioneering research documenting Indigenous music in Manitoba.
See a lot of familiar faces that I haven't seen for a long time. I like it. My cousin. Anyway, before I start into the presentation, there was an article in the Winnipeg Free Press that said something in the way of the Club Morocco being a hotbed of Winnipeg jazz. You know, I played there, my clubs that I played in that time period in the Rancho, Chance Winter, Club Morocco, Barrett, and none of them were jazz. We were playing dance music. So there's a lot of rumors going around. You know, there's a picture of Duke Ellington at the Club Morocco. And everybody said, oh yeah, Duke played at the Morocco. Duke played at the Morocco, was there, that's great. Cross at the auditorium during the day. The same thing with Cal Basie in the picture of him at the cave. I think he was at the South Winnipeg auditorium, the big amphitheater there was this band in 1946. And everybody said, oh, Cal played at the cave. But, as I said, we didn't play jazz. We didn't play dance music. You know? I guess jazz can be much harder to define it. It's such a broad category. But if you define one part of jazz as improvisation, then okay, we would play a tune and maybe play one improvised chorus and then go back and play it again. Long into the dance. But outside the dance version, pretty soon the others are saying, I think we better get a new band. So we have to be very careful. But improvisation is a major part of jazz music. And I think what's going to happen today is a little bit of verbal jazz between Owen and you. When we were doing our Zoom lead-ups to this presentation, Len would say something, John would have a trigger story, I would trigger a story for me, Kinsey would jump in, oh yeah, these are all great stories. And we don't, each one of us doesn't know all these stories, but between us is a wealth of information about not only the Jewish community, but the influence of the Jewish musicians on the whole community. My involvement with Jewish musicians started well before I wrote musical posts. Some of the first band leaders and musicians I played with in Winnipeg when I started at the Rancho in 1960 were Jews. They were, Jewish musicians were all over the place. Sometimes you didn't know because, hello, I'm Darrell Johnson. Oh, okay, what was your real name? That was reality. I'll get into that. So musical ghosts. Let me see. I have to figure out that. There we go. This is the Minnesota Little Symphony Orchestra. And on the far right, this is Leon Astor. This is Izzy's dad. And this is his wife. It's just the other thing. Yeah. They were very prominent in the Mendoza area. They had this orchestra for a long time. And after he passed away, all Leon's music was with Izzy. And Izzy is no use for it. It's old music, historic, and all that, but there's no real use for it. So we donated it to the university that we will get music department. It was in the basement. And youngsters, we had no idea who Astor was, what this orchestra was, and they were big airplanes, we were laying out music, going around the basement on the music building. So I ended up with all the music. They said, you can't catalog it, you don't have enough money to do that, you don't have space for it, what are you going to do with it? I said, I don't know. Take it home, let's do it, sequence is savable, and let the rest of it. So I did, and a number of years later, I went to, before I went to Winnipeg Fox Orchestra, I went in their library, and there's a whole bunch of this music that I had given to a band teacher in Posen. And all of a sudden, that's the same block. I remember the block. It's there in the library. So where'd you get this? I said, well, some teachers did. I said, okay, well, so it ended up finally, I think it was one of Izzy's sons got in touch with us and said, I understand you have some of my grandmother's music. So he said, well, could they get some of it back? So maybe because it's radio. So we went through it. Yeah, we ended up getting a whole bunch back to the family, and the rest ended up in the recycling. That's the way it is. This is the old porch audio in. In its previous life, it was the Posen Dance Gardens from 1914 to 1917, and the Alhambra Dance Gardens from 1918 to 1926. So I went to work at the International Inn with Monty Levine in 1975. He was a great one to tell my story. And he told me about this place, and he said, the building is still standing, go down, go in the building, it's an open air parking lot. He said, look at the ceiling. He said, you'll still see that. That's what was on the ceiling of this Ford model kit. This guy right here, that's Benjamin Levine, violinist, father of Monty and Molly, and I'll get to it in a minute, because I can't think of the name off the top of my head. So this was the orchestra at the Alhambra, 1946, 1947. Over here, this is Sammy Friedman, banjo player, worked around Winnipeg until around 1929, maybe 1930, then moved to New York and had a wonderful career in New York as a banjo player. The rest of the guys, Monty, myself, and other musicians, we just were not there, able to identify. Yes, this is Molly Lee Levine, sax player in Seminary. We don't know who the other people were. And this was the Molly Levine trio, one of the first female trios in Winnipeg. And this is Sally Lee, another Levine, Monty's sister, moved to Toronto and had a career there as a saxophone and clarinet player. This is the band at the Flame nightclub. The Flame was out on Rushmore Road. This guy here. This is Howard Isidore, Alice Prince, Maury Whitman, Monty Levine. And I think that's the only Jewish musician in that band. So I ended up working. I worked with Al. I worked with Billy Thompson over here. I spent a lot of years working with Monty. I don't know whether any of you knew Monty Levine or not. He was a real character. He had lots of stories, and I just had a wonderful time. I spent 75 to 78 with him at the Hall of Look restaurant. Every night, was a story night. Very again, Monty just not playing guitar. He's a very fine guitar player. And also over here on this side is Big Davey, pianist that I grew up with. And Victor moved to Toronto, and he's had a wonderful career internationally and all the Posen. Halloween at the Posen, Nevada. So, right here. That guy is Harry Levine. So when I was working at the International Inn, Monty Levine was the manager and bass player. Harry Levine was pianist, and Mickey Levine was the general manager. And according to Monty, they were not related. They didn't know each other. I don't know whether that's true or not. Anyway, this was 1946, I believe it was. Yeah, Halloween weekend. And Harry was playing with Chuck Martin band. Okay, this is an interesting photograph. A couple of reasons. This guy right here is Joe Carr. He was a pharmacist, and he was president of the National Physicians Association for a lot of years. And I became quite good friends with Joe over time. The interesting thing about this photograph, I got it from the Western Canadian Pictorial Center. This guy over here, where that corner, when I got the photograph, that was a black wall. You could not see a person. And when I did the book, I gave it to the layout person, and he looked at it and he said, I think I can clean this up. That's what he did. All of that black wall came Elwood Giant. Yeah. Incredible job of digital artistry. Bert Pearl, some of you may remember Bert Pearl and the Happy Gang. And this was Bert's band here in Winnipeg. This guy over here is Lou Braille Rabinovich. And I checked with Sid. And hey, Sid, how are you? That's good to see you. And he's not really a good guy. Maury Lidway. Okay, in the back, the drummer is Ferdy Peterson, not Freddie. Ferdinand Theophilus Peterson. Father Gary Peterson, called to get too. And the infant is Glenn Whitman, and his dad boarded him. So Glenn told me a story. They lived in the North End along with Ron Taylor. So Glenn and Ron put a band together. And if they worked in the North End, where the more Ukrainian people, it was Ron Taylor. If they worked in the South End town, where the more Jewish people, it was Glenn Whitman. Audrey Gadman, who we lost not too long ago, wonderful singer, great writer, went to Toronto first, then moved to LA, and achieved a great hit as a writer for all kinds of television shows. He's a writer, Paul Rosnick. I first met Paul when I went to the Rancho Don Carlos with my drum teacher, Eddie Surson, and Paul was there as the band leader. And I got to meet with him, and over time, got to know him, and I visited with him in Toronto. We had a couple of days, great conversation. 2 years before. Well, Morocco, somebody say, Morocco. Harry Smith, yeah? Herschel Schwetke. That was his real name. When he got to immigration, that's how he became Larry Smith. He had a great career. I don't know whether any of you ever went to Morocco. It's a great place to play. It was also one of the few places in town that had food until 2 o'clock in the morning. So as other musicians working at other clubs, we finished at 1, and we rush over to Morocco and up there and have a drink and things like that. Alice Prince went to the Club Morocco on a 2-week contract and stayed for 22 years. Great guy. I knew Alice quite well. I worked with him there. I'm moving pretty quickly. This is Jack Shapiro. On piano, a very young Jack Shapiro running one of his first bands. We know some of the people in there, but not all of you. And this is Jack again. This was the first jazz club in Winnipeg that I really got involved with. It's called the Stage Door, 261 4th Street. And this is a calculation of the jazz musicians who were really working a lot at that particular time. The band leader was Bob Burlington on piano, Gary Gross on accordion, Ron Alderson on bass, Lenny Rowe on guitar, Rich Kellen on drums, Mary Nelson on vocalist, Pete Thompson and Barry Coleman, trombone and sax, Gordon Kowalski on drums, Bernie Sinensky started a lot of his jazz career at that stage, and then me. And we were the core group that we raced there after our gig. So that we could sit and play jazz till 3, 4, 5 months. Leon Eisenberg. He was the band leader at the Cabana. The black musician is Frank Lewis. And if I had time, I could show you how many different bands there were in Winnipeg. Totally like there were no black musicians, there was no Asian musicians, there was nothing. And this is one of the first bands in Winnipeg. Frank Lewis came to town with a group from LA, liked it so much that he stayed, let the group go, and he ended up working all over the place. CBC, they're wonderful sax player, writer, vocalist, great guys. Martin Friedman, Earl Golden, Sherman Rossow, and Ted Benson. Earl is the only one of this group that I actually know, but this was the first of the teenage vocal groups that came up in the 1950s. They started in 54, Twin Tones started in 55, Ray St. Germain came along in 56, and the group that I was with called the Saints came along in 57. I don't know what else is. I didn't hear it. This is the Saints. This is the group that I work with. This is me, front and center down here. This is Riley Spiegelman. Jerry Cohen. Jerry Lucas. So, and Gary Foster. And Cam Fairfield on piano. And Steve Warner on the phone. So, again, here we are. Not an integrated group, it's just a little different in Winnipeg in the 50s. I didn't see a lot of that. So that was a really interesting group. We lasted about a year. We played a gig at the Uptown Theatre Academy, and it was in August, and the owner said, I really like you guys, I want you to stay and play every week. We were staying there in the world, can't believe it. So the guys went home, got to their parents, and their parents said, oh no, you're going to university. Can't get through. The Swing Girls, one of my very favorite groups. This is kind of an odd photograph. It's the only one I could find Harvey Nerd on piano. Yeah. Many nights in the Harvey's basement rehearsing with these guys, not because I play them, but because you don't get to be able to hang out and just listen. Like, oh my God, I'm going to use that with my group. Oh, great. Next 80s Jim. They were on piano. This was his teenage band. Nick had a lot of different bands when he was in Winnipeg, when he was blowing up as a teenager. This was one of the first ones that we had. Later had the Cool, which was a larger jazz ensemble. And then life changed for him at the university, came back and this is the last one I like. This guy here is Ernie Malovich. You know Ernie? Spent some time with him. And I went to see him one day and I said, Ernie, you've been around for a long time, man. You got some pictures or something that I can get from your career. What are you talking? You go on this wall. And he had this picture in his wall. And I said, Ernie, what's going on? He said, I'm carrying your picture in my wallet since 1948. And I said, why? He said, it's a great picture. over on the side, over here. This is Omar Williams, a black piano player who was related to Oscar Peterson. And there's some funny stories about Omar, Oscar, and George Smith. I think that's about all I've got pictures. So, questions? Am I going to time?
I'm going to do questions.
You got any questions?
We have questions for Owen, but keep them on hold. Wasn't there a great Chinese buffet at Club Rock?
Yeah. Well, there was a Chinese buffet.
Exactly, that's how it is. If you talk about integration with black musicians later on in Winnipeg, some of you might remember the Butcher Show, which was across the street from the Crescent 11. That turned into the CBS Club, which was the Colored Benevolent Society, which was made up of a lot of porters, people like that, who were alive, of course, and were musicians. So we used to have Saturday sessions, jam sessions. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, would you please welcome Udow?
Thank you very much. Great to see you all here. Thank you, Larry. I did want to start with making a bit of a statement. Contrary to rumors around town and after years of having my actual name misspelled in the press and on stage, my name is not the good name of Martin McLean. Nor is my name Al Prince, or Bert Earl, or Jack Shapiro. We expected that compared to others in the music business after my record release in 1976. One music reviewer liked my songwriting sound all time, and my mustachio look to the comedic actor Dave Kaplan won't be that high. Now the kids, the children over the years, like my white and sometimes ugly hairstyle to Albert Einstein. Alas, I'm just another one of those one-man kids. Born to my folks, Saul and Sarah, in the St. Boniface Hospital. I was born a Canadian and a British Commonwealth. At my opinion event, I was known as called Lady Abraham, then Shlomo the Seventh. And these days I'm often referred to as Len, or if you knew me back then, Len. And yes, if you have guessed, it is true, my name is Lenny Kravitz. And I'm the illegitimate son of Rabbi Kravitz, my elementary school principal. And now it's over there. Thank you, Stan. It appears, and you can testify, come to this time in life where I'm now being asked not only to remember the past, but to share these reminiscences with an audience. I've done a few of these in the last few years during the pandemic. So as you can imagine, for someone introverted, there takes a lot of good stuff to come out and to remember. So I thought I would share this with my fellow family. The final happens. Gratitude is when memory is stored in the heart and not in the mind. Unlike my fellow panelists, I think I'm going to reveal part of my heart today. My fellow panelists who have considerable knowledge of music business and its evolution for the last 100 years here in our city. So my scope is very limited. Naming names will be only incidental in this presentation. And those names will definitely be those who are close to me and close to my heart. So we shall begin. This is my mother, Sarah Udow. I called her the other day the Grand Duchess. My life, anyway. A rare talent who could perform wonderfully in all genres of music. She could teach. My brother and I, of course, were mentors by her in that realm. She mentored many generations of Winnipeggers who went on to become great singers. Here's my years one. And my mother could read Yiddish. She could write Yiddish. Without the big dog. Very unusual. I was fascinated by it. She could read Hebrew and Galatians and modern. She could sing in German, Italian, and French. She was the ability to play classical piano, sing opera, dare I say jazz, Owen, and folk. And with the founding of the State of Israel, the songs and dances of the dreamers and the builders and the Habanim who were the joy of their life's dream. So here is a small little poem written by the first chief rabbi of Israel, and I think it applies to the wonderful Sarah Udow. There is one who sings the song of her life, finding everything within himself. There is one who leads the circle of himself and sings the song of the people. There is one whose voice rings with the song of humanity, hoping for higher perfection. And then there is one who rises even higher, relating all creatures, with all worlds, filling the universe with song. So here we were, kids mustered together, gathered up. My mother was the rancher. And she would go out and cull the herd every year. And if you were chosen, you were brought to the street choir at Russian synagogue. Because choirs in Winnipeg were the fundamental roots of culture in local schools and in all of our schools and our public schools. It was on TV. Remember him singing? And of course, the national tradition choirs lives on. It really was the lifeblood of all of our cultural heritage. So the YMHA. That's where I first started to play guitar and sing songs. Of course, I did have it modeled for me by Murray Udow, who not only played guitar and sang every song you know, he also smoked cigarettes and blew smoke rings. We all admired that. Great thing. So the Y on heart rate, the first dance and the first swim in fluoridated water. The first public performance was with and for the youth. I was with a group called the Wayward 4+1. The +1 was Marty Stoller, who played banjo, and the diversity twins along with Marvin. we won the CKY amateur hour just by beating out Bert Cummings. Who played the trumpet. I can't quite figure that one out. And I think I mentioned some names, right on? Okay. Then there was undeniably in the musical life of the community, all of the shuls, all of the kindergarten and community centers were so abundant. And that's so necessary. You know, my thing is the Labat Shul, the Ashkenazi, the Torah, the Rashida, the Avram, the Sherezetic, the Hebrew State Lodge. These are all places that I went to on a regular basis. I would go to all of these wonderful institutions where you can have incredible food and the occasional music. Oh, yes. Yes, the sweet table later is always there. Now, before music was a business, it was a fundamental of life, as fundamental as food and rest. It was a calling to be carefully nurtured. You had to be trained somewhat. To learn to breathe, place the tone. There were some wonderful voices in those days. And there you are. So many wonderful voices in my youth. Miriam Brighton on the left, my mother Sarah, and my wonderful uncle David Gordon, who's a Hadrani in Winnipeg, amongst others. I believe I was told Stan said that was Morris Cohn, who's the other gentleman. Now, I used to talk about someone who fulfilled the dream of not only making music in Winnipeg, but going out into the world. The famous Norman Middleman. Oh, what a tenor, what a baritone. And what he did, what he accomplished in life. And of course, that's what my mother did. She went to Minnesota. Minneapolis. And she tried out for the Metropolitan Opera, and she got accepted, but she decided, I think I'll stay home and have a family. I thought I'd mention this fellow. He sang and stayed popular with the song. This will land, play one, play this one, fine. Who is that? Canadian, Alan Hill. Oh, wonderful, wonderful model. What a sweetheart. Then there was a fellow here that you might remember. No? BBC television, country music, play the guitar, do Philip. Usually you. But, no, usually you. And, but these were my first guitar playing model heroes. My first guitar teachers were someone named Jimmy Terry, who went on to work in Toronto at the Rainbow. Wonderful jazz. And of course, this was Lenny Grover. He was amazing. My mother did a session with him. A recording session. She came home and said, I met a genius. Now, speaking of guitar, that's supposedly me. Back in 1961, I believe, I'm not sure. That's when I took up the guitar, left classical music behind, and I initially took on the bongos. I became a bongo player, and I played for a beat poet by the name of Kenneth Martin. And then I went on to play bongos for Arlene Walsh, who sang, "Don't look at the house that's built, down the roof, down the floor, and even in the band, so in the house of bamboo." I was a bongo player in a bongo line. with my arch rival, fellow bongoist, Larry Curtis. He ended up as the national program. And of course, it was so silly to have bongo, right? Randy Backman, who was our school mate, said, "Oh, I'll play guitar while you guys are having your bongo." It was fun. It really was. And then there you go. I said a few more names. Now, cars were known for many things, but this particular model car, that color, was the one that my father bought in 1957, and we discovered at Winnipeg Beach that we could hear Dick Young in Chicago playing rhythm and blues. And that was my first memory of hearing people like Udow playing the blues. And I was infatuated with the blues. But you only have to wait for those clear nights, you know, when there's a clear sky, and you pick up Dick Young. I thought I'd show you this. This is my first gig ever at the ranch house on Main Street. And of course, what's called Kinsey, because that's the daughter of the owner. And I put it down in this dungy little basement. And I sang every song I knew, which was 4 or 5. This one here I thought I'd show you because the phenom in the 60s was a group that was so tight in every which way that they were remarkable. Remarkably so that when time went on and I ended up in university, I met up with a fellow named Phil Schreiber, who I started a band called Posen. And that's a picture of Phil. He was here at NPS with a production called Red Emma. Musical about England. And of course, I had to talk to you about these demos because they helped not just myself, they helped so many musicians, but also many, many thousands of people have a say, have a share of what went on in our community. That's what all of them, right? And Mark. And they were so culturally, they brought together two very dynamic aspects of activity life, which is television and festival life. That's myself. At the second folk festival, I was so cold I was shivering, and that young girl ran up and sat on my lap. How dare I ask Mitch to have a piano at the Winnipeg Posen? It was unheard of. So they had to settle with a Fender Rose, which is quite a desirable. And then I went on to come back to Winnipeg after my years away, and I started a group with Roger Robson on the left. I thought there's Fred Fenner in the back, and Ken Stewart, director of television from CY. We had a little group called the Short Notice Quartet, and we played with Bob Mullen in the group, so we played with Kinsey. We did a Christmas show with Kinsey. And I taught the boys how to sing Marvelous Boy. And they did a wonderful job. So nice that Fred decided to do a Christmas album and put us on it as well. Then we sang King and his show on CKNT, and that's now somewhere on the internet. If anyone who watched the Short Notice Quartet, you would find it easy. And then our growing art story was when we worked with the contemporary dancers. And from that, we entered into the dance world. The Chardonnay of the Royal Winnipeg Ballet invited us to sing to the Queen of England. And there we are, dressed as courtiers of walk, pointing at the Winnipeg Symphony Orchestra, the exalted dancers, the Royal Winnipeg Ballet, even the past looking at and now, as I come to the conclusion, I thought I'd bring this to our attention. Certainly in my guiding light, we do the same up, to work with joy. To work with joy. And what I think it is for Jews to be able to find that in their work and in their lives. But this is something that we take for granted. And I brought that with me to, I can't put it over here. My grandparents were with us. They were British people. And they were largely identified with, of all things, the East 19, who objected to what they saw as conceived denigration of Palestine and north of Jewish law. In favor of undue emphasis on emotionality and religious fellowship as pathways to the divine. The term is not meaning. The opponent is somewhat of David's former opposition to the law, much of its salient. That's true. The word is not meaning. It's interesting. They had a son who became one of the characters, and two daughters who became one of the Zelda and Sarah. So here's just to finish, there's a big huge song that we all are familiar with, and we think that it's a civic. It's lost a little bit of its original mockery of CD. And if you go on the net, you can actually get Leonard Cohen singing it at a German rock somewhere in Berlin in the 70s. But if you listen carefully, it's become one of our favorites, which we identify as fussy, but it really is something for us all to think. So when someone speaks, someone listens. Now, what you don't know is that last verse is the one that we
And your mom started a choir, which is wonderful. You were talking about choir. I went to apply for it. And Martin, that's my real name. Your voice is changing. Thank you. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. John Einarson.
Thank you. I'll just put my props over here. I'm not sure, Steve, if I should advance this.
Yeah, start from the beginning.
Oh.
I'll do it.
Thank you. You know, I have to say I'm thrilled to be on stage with these three gentlemen here who've had such an amazing impact on music and music history and documenting music history here in Manitoba and Winnipeg. And all three of them had an impact on me in writing my book, Heart of Gold, History of Winnipeg Music, and all three are a part of that book as well. I mentioned that when my daughter, my wife is Jewish, so I'm Jewish by osmosis, she did say to me before I left that she said, John, don't call them Jews, say Jewish people. When my daughter got married, Headingly Lynn officiated. And after the ceremony outside, walking back into the reception, and I was just teary-eyed. It was my little girl and my daughter getting married, and one of my former students who was there was like asking me, Mr. Einarson, why are you crying? He said, because I just saw the bell. That's still it's interesting that Len showed you a picture of Mitch Owen from the Folk Festival. Legendary character, you could say. In 1972, I was living in a house in the corner of Gertrude and Davy. It was a little house that had been made into like different floors for different suites, and I was in the attic suite. And Mitch and his wife Eva were living on the first floor, which was a much more spacious place than my little villa. And I was going to university to play in rock and roll band, so I would be seen carrying a guitar, Fender guitar case up and down the stairs quite often. And I'd never met Mitch, but one day he came out of this suite as I was coming in with the guitar case, and he stopped, he had introduced himself, and he said, well, I see you're a musician. And he said, you know, I've been thinking about a folk festival. What do you think? And I wanted Woodstock. I didn't want guys to play zithers and borrow lives. So I said to him, it'll never work. And whenever we would see each other from then on, we always laughed about that. I was the naysayer that he chose not good on him for that. I'm going to be talking kind of about rock and roll and music from the 1950s onward. And the thing about rock and roll is it's the great equalizer, I guess you would say. In 1954, around the same time that rock and roll really began to kick off, the transistor radio. What the transistor radio did was it took music out of the hands of parents. So remember, you used to have a big wooden radio console thingy in the living room, and they determined what to listen to. But the transistor radio put music into our hands, and we could tune into what we want. And you know, I was like many of you, taking the radio to bed at night, and I was listening to CKYC. And in the States, what it did was it broke down the barriers. It's a great intercultural integrator because young people, young white kids, wanted to listen to African American music. Parents wanted to listen to it in the living room, but they could tune it in themselves. And rock and roll was also an equalizer in that it didn't matter whether you were Jewish or non-Jewish or African American or any of that. If you could play guitar, or in my case, if you had an amplifier that was louder than mine, you could join the band. And I grew up with Jewish musicians. I went to Grant Park School, and some of the people that Bart had mentioned, and I will mention them as well, were people that I had jam sessions with in the basements, and they all went on to be doctors and lawyers. I stayed in music here. But in the 1950s into the 1960s, the place to go for rock and roll was the community clubs. And this is the Udow Community Club. And in January of 1961, Neil Young made his first live performance at that community club here. A band called the Jades. And he told me that for him, it ignited in him that night the passion to make music in life, and he's still doing it, still today. But for many of us who are of a certain age, the community club was where we went to meet our friends, and actually Len once called it this. I was interviewing him about the fourth dimension, and he said, well, folk music wasn't about that mating ritual, which was the community club, where boys met girls, and they'd always start off with the boys on one side seated, and the girls on the other side seated. And you kind of wait until the boldest boy, and in my case it was Randy McCallum, who would get the nerve to go out and ask a girl to dance. And Randy liked Janet Brown. And I liked Janet Brown. So when Randy got up, I took that and I hoofed it over as fast as I could. And in front of Janet Brown, I slipped and fell. Guess who danced with Janet Brown? Anyway, community clubs are certainly very important to music, and it's, as I said, it's where music came alive first. And you know, I've sat in Neil Young's living room. I've sat in Randy Bachman's living room. I've sat with Burton Cummings. I've sat with Fred Turner. These people who came out of that music scene and they played big stadiums and arenas and concert halls in the world. But what gets them excited on the edge of their seat talking is playing Christ's Community Club, or playing Orioles Community Club, or playing Glenwood Community Club. Because that's when it was just all about the music and the excitement. So this is a real great community club. Next year. Okay. Steve, are you here?
Yeah.
Let's try. There we go. Okay, I'll do it this way. First River Heights Community Club. River Heights was the pinnacle community club. If you had a gig there, that was big time. Yeah, and I remember I played River Heights the night of the October crisis. And coming home 2 in the morning, putting the TV on and watching tanks rolling on. That's a community club there. That's a crescendos playing a community club there. As you can see, it's small. It's like some of the basement. But it was music at a grassroots level. And there's Bobby Curtola, who used to come and play community clubs in Winnipeg. That had the Sean Dell's thing. From Port Arthur. There we go. And Burton Cummings playing a community club. We got that going. And Burton Cummings enjoying a Dr. Pepper. I think it's a Dr. Pepper. And you can see the community clubs. Again, it was music at a grassroots level, and I would go to community clubs and watch the guitar players play. Now, Owen mentioned some of these people here, and I put them in the context of rock and roll because they were vocal groups. And that's what we first heard in Winnipeg for rock and roll was what we call the doo-wop, and the swing tones being one of them. And that's Harvey Nairn there on piano, who was a part of that group. And Ernie Nairn's brother. And there's Harvey there with the swing tone. And as Owen mentioned, this is the 4 chords. And again, doo-wop vocal groups. The whole rockabilly thing hadn't hit Winnipeg, but it started with the vocal groups. And I believe that Martin Friedman, who is this fellow that's tall one here, went on to be a judge, right? I didn't quite remember. In Winnipeg. And the hi-fis with Yale Lerner on the drums, and that's Victor Davies on piano. And there they are. They caused a team live when they played a City Hawkins dance. I'm sure I don't have to explain to you what City Hawkins is. I'm sure you don't. It's kind of tied up a little bit. So the girls can ask their boys and corsage thing to wear. Joel Shapiro, the fellow on saxophone here at the end. This is a group called the Jurymen. And they came after a group called Mickey Brown and the Velvetones. Mickey Brown and the Velvetones are one of the first rock and roll bands playing community clubs here. And they're full-on rock and roll with guitars and drums and everything. And the guy on guitar, I don't know if I can put it to him because I can't hear. That's Randy Bachman. And Joel Shapiro was the sax player of Mickey Brown and the Velvetones. And then later in the Jurymen. And the guy on bass is Gary Bachman, whose music career pretty much began and ended with this band here. But he involved in other aspects of music. They're playing a Legion in the north end of Winnipeg, but Joel Shapiro was very well known at the time. And these guys were Dante and the Infernos. And they were from Garden City, and the drummer was Jerry Katz. Jerry Katz. And it's interesting, I interviewed him a few years ago, and he said, unlike most of the other musicians in town in rock and roll bands, we just did this for a while, but we all wanted to be doctors and lawyers and dentists, which they in fact all did become. But they played the circuit around here, as did the Pebble Beaters. The Pebble Beaters were from the north end in Garden City, and it's the fellow name here is not Jewish. His name is Gord Beveridge. And that's Marshall Berger, Barry Lank, who died a few years ago, the filmmaker, so maybe you may know, his brother Marshall Lank, and Milton Baker, who became known as Mike Rivers, the radio DJ, and his cousin is here to stay. And she said he now goes under the name Milt Baker Rivers or something. Mike Baker Rivers, okay. But they played, you can fill me in later. They played around the music scene. The Shondells went through a lot of different lineups, but the guy here, that's Norm Goldberg, and he was in one of the later lineups of the Shondells, very popular band. They released records, and if I can get this one out. For some reason, this mouse doesn't like. There we go. The girl in the middle is Sherry Lynn Nathanson. And the Nathansons were part owners of the City Center Hotel with the Gulsons. And she sang the Electric Banana, and then she sang the Canyon. And she went down to the States and performed in Texas for many, many years. When I was 17, the Electric Banana with Sherry Lynn called me up and asked me to join. And the drinking age was still 21 at the time, so my dad said, so I didn't get a chance to play with her. She was very well known in the city on the team. That's Rick Schuster, who is right here. Jewish bass player in town, played in a lot of bands like Hyde Park. He also played in Red Rider as well. He went to Toronto, played in a band in Toronto called Transfusion. And Mark Reed, who I knew from Grant Park School, brilliant guitar player. This is him with a band called the Open Avenue Comfort Station. And that's them in front of the Open Avenue Comfort Station. Some of you may remember. And there they are there as well. Now, two of the guys in the Open Avenue Comfort Station went into the Guess Who. And that's Greg Lescue, and that's Bill Wallace, who later went into 1972 and into Guess Who. This is another rock band from the 60s, and they were called the Expedition to Earth. And the guy singing, and unfortunately these names here will be a later picture. The guy singing is Bernie Barsky, who you knew from the Fourth Dimension. He used to sing at the Fourth Dimension quite often as a folkie. And the bass player is Brian Lev, whose brother Keith did not get stitchers, or did not get braces and stitchers. And this is another picture of them here. Now they are there. There's Bernie Barsky and Brian Lev, and they released a record called Expedition to Earth and toured Canada. Now, just some of the names, as I mentioned, Joel Shapiro being the juryman, and Lou Fritz, Sid Bumble, Jack F. Willett, and Martin Posen. And as a matter of fact, I was in a band called All Times as Such. We played regrets. We were second, and Cream and Henderson. And he was in the band from the North End called Blue Frizz, who were second. And we had a battle of the bands. And it was hell in our territory, so it was at Christchurch, around Lanark and Courtney. And we wanted Randy Bachman to come and judge it, but he said we had to pay $50. To get a rivalry. And I can tell this company, we both had hair. Yes. We got Hard Rain, which kind of evolved a little bit out of Blue Frizz. Sid Bob, Jack McMillan, and Larry Karski. The Discovery, who guys that I went to Grant Park with, Mark Raymond, Marty Raymond, Marty Coyle, I think there's some more guys here. Jerry Devins, Bobby Thompson, Steve Plotkin. These are guys I went to school with at Grant Park School. And, guys like Jerry Devins, he was playing a harmony guitar and cheap. He had a Gibson 335, a big Fender bandmaster amp. So whether he could play or not, we were very envious of him. And there was a band called The Variation, and that was, there were a few people in it, but I was looking at Jewish musicians, Forrest Walsh in Grant Park, and Howie Wiseman. Howie Wiseman I met the first day at Grant Park, grade 7. I was in major work when we were isolated, as always, 7, 8, 9. But in music class, we were integrated. I met Howie the first day. We became very, very tight friends. And he didn't play guitar, but he wasn't as obsessed about music as I was. But he would invite me over with his guitar, and his little brother would come and watch us. His little brother was Bobby Wiseman. Of course, went on to a great career on his own, but he would hang around at people baby. But I remember the day in 1966 when I brought this album to school, had it at my locker, and I showed it to Howie, and I said, look, these guys are all Jewish. You know, it's Cooperberg, Katz, Kyle, Blumenfeld, oh no, that's Paul Archer. And he was absolutely amazed that there were bands making records who were all Jewish musicians. A bit of a revelation for him. And of course, the Love Circle with Sheldon Stoller, who was the drummer in the band, was Jewish. There's Howie Wiseman again. He went and played in the Lighthouse. When he was down at university in Toronto, because he played cello, he was invited to play in one of the last lineups of Lighthouse. And Blue Rodeo, Bobby Wiseman there. Friday the 13th and Just Us 4, a band from St. James in the North End. Al Rosenberg was the drummer. He went to be a commercial artist. And the Pumps and Orphan, who had a big hit with a song called Miracle in the 1980s. Red Diamond was the keyboard player in that band. And that's Al Rosenberg in the middle with Friday the 13th, and that's Sheldon Stoller there in Love Circle, who released a hit record as well. And this guy, I went to Grant Park with him. This is Sam Broverman. And Sam Broverman played in a band called The Trip, and that's Sam singing. Well, Sam went on to get his PhD in actuarial mathematics, and he's written books, and he's been a full professor at the University of Toronto for about 40 years. Sam never studied for an exam in high school. He never studied for a math exam. He just intuitively knew it all. But he began in later years in Toronto to become a singer. And he's a fabulous kind of a crooner singer. And his version of Moon River, I believe, is one of the best versions there is of Sam Broverman. He's put up a number of great CDs. Look them up online. This is one of his best, Jewish Boys Christmas. And he performs it every year in Toronto and packs the house. He's also performed it in Vancouver and Victoria as well. He's never come here and done it, but it's hilarious. And you can get that CD from him. And coming from more Garden City in the North End, this is Mojo and the Nighthawks. And they're considered one of the first electric blues bands playing in Winnipeg. And I knew Seymour Coughlin from River Heights and Grant Park, Sandy Choshinoff, Dave Garber, Davey Kaufman, and their manager, Larry Waldman. They were all from Garden City, but they were acknowledged as one of the first electric rock blues bands in Winnipeg, and they were great. And now, they don't fit in here, but I didn't want to leave them out, and that's the Steiner Brothers. You know, they're not rock and roll, they're not jazz, they're not folk music, but they were major entertainers. I mean, these guys performed with Frank Sinatra by his request, and Dean Martin, their first name basis with all these people. And they came from Winnipeg, Roy, Ron, and Rob Steiner from all over the world. And I was fortunate to interview them for a good press story that I did. Fascinating story. Let's see if I can get this moving here. I want to end my show, so I'm not even sure what it is I'm supposed to do. There we go. There they are there, performing on TV. Now, Ronnie Steiner went on to become the original Musketeers. The first year of the Musketeers, he was an original Musketeer. And he was paid something like $700 a week in like 1959, 58, sometime around there. Amazing amount of money. He only did it for 1 year because he missed being with us much. So, they're not rock and roll. I didn't want to leave them out. Now, it wasn't just those who played the music. There were Jewish people involved in all aspects of music, including radio, and perhaps the best known and best loved was the DJ was Doc Steen, Irving Doc Steen from CKRC. And I had the pleasure of interviewing him for a number of years ago. And he said to me, you know, I was for about 5 years, I was never home on a Friday or Saturday night because he would be emceeing dances where bands were playing. Doc Steen would be there. You know, so they have a beloved character. There he is with Bob Burns and the guest who holding silver discs for shaking all over in 1965. There he is with the original Mongols. And often, he got paid more than the band to do the gigs. But the guy in drums is Joey Gregory, who started up in the Mongols as the drummer. Now, moving ahead and talking about radio, in the late 1960s to early 70s, we had the first FM freeform rock and roll station. It was CKY Radio, FM. And one of the guys who was very prominent about was Harold Gershon. And it was interesting radio because They play anything and everything. It's called the Now Flower. And it had a big impact on certainly music for me. A lot of music I hadn't heard before. And there's H. Caravaggio. You know, a key figure in music still today here in Winnipeg. And what distinguished Howard and why he's here is because he promoted and encouraged and supported and played local music. Big supporter of local music, and still on the radio, Howard Manshine. There he is there. Now, it wasn't just playing music. There were very enterprising Jewish people who saw the power of music and to connect their businesses with it. This guy is Ivan Berkowitz. Now, Ivan Berkowitz was the head of promotion for Monarch there, MW. And that's Mr. Steinberg there, Abraham Steinberg, who owned Monarch there. But Ivan Berkowitz was young, and he realized the power of music, and they came up with a pair of jeans, a brand called TJs. And they promoted TJs by holding events and getting radio involved. I think that's Jim Posen there. There we are, the jury playing at Polo Park for an event for still doing TJs. When they found that there was a trademark dispute, TJs became TKs. And you might remember the slogan, J is out, A is in. And they continued. The Monarch was very closely associated with the rock and roll scene and the music scene and the bands. They even put out an album, you know, dancing with your TKs on, or music to wear TKs on Columbia Special Products there. And they had Miss TK, who would go around all the dances wearing the latest TK outfits and modeling them. That's Lucie Lemond, who was a singer on CBC. They organized what was called the TJ Cavalcade of Stars, and they're played in various parts of Winnipeg Community Clubs. They also went to Brandon. And looking at some of the people here, Mike Hanford is here from the Shondells. There's Doc Steen. There's George Johns from the jury. There's a very young Burton Cummings there. And there's the Monarch Rare Dancers. And the guy over here, very important in Winnipeg music, he promoted these shows for his production company called Harper Productions. It's Freddie Glazerman. Freddie Glazerman, he was large in Manitoba music. He was a promoter. He was a music impresario. He booked a lot of big talent come to Winnipeg. And when I was playing in a band for high school Big Iron, he booked us playing community clubs all over the city. And there he is there with the Bee Gees, one of the many acts that he booked to come to Winnipeg to play the concert hall. That's Freddie on the right. And there he is with Bob Moe. It looks like Bob's trying to get away from him. It was his son who gave me that picture. He said, Bob Moe's trying to get away from my dad. You know, and again, a lot of the different shows that he promoted, a lot of the great music he brought to Winnipeg. He's fondly remembered. This is this guy. This is Frank Weiner. Frank Weiner started out as the manager of a band called the Shondells. Then he opened up a nightclub on Portage Avenue called the Hungry Eye. My mother wouldn't let me go to the Hungry Eye. She said only hard rocks. Oh, where you guys at Kinsey? Look at the punch out these pressing with Wimpy. No, those guys. But he then started the Hungry Eye booking agency. He had the biggest booking agency in Winnipeg. And sadly, he just passed away this past Thursday. I hope to have a story in the Free Press next week about it, because he looms large in Winnipeg music, and a lot of musical entertainers and musicians got their start by signing with Frank Weiner. And he had the Franklin label, which again was an outlet for local bands, Sugar and Spice, the Mongo, the Gators with the Dress, all really the fit all of these records on Franklin Records, the Cruel, Sugar and Spice. And he had the club, the Hungry Eye Club, as I mentioned, and the Hungry Eye booking agency that, he booked a lot of bands and things that we just booking acts in town. And Terry Morris, who was in many ways the competitor to Frank Weiner, Hungry Eye agency, a talent booker for decades. He, kind of a sad story, he was an orphan as a child and he became a ward of the Jewish Children and Family Services, and was then raised in a foster home. But he was a major talent for booking bands and entertainers, and there he is signing Pat Ryerson there as well. He just died a couple of weeks ago as well. And this is the only picture I could find of Jerry Shore. And it's not like this is Jerry and the Pacemaker, but he booked that show. Jerry, he ran Celebrity Box Office. in the bay, and the mezzanine floor of the bay, and then it was in Eaton's became attractions ticket lines. And he booked a lot of the biggest talent that came to the arena, Jerry Shore. He was also in the Tiffany Towers and his famous bottle parties, which I will not go into. But he brought the monkey store day, April 1st, 1967. Now, there was a fellow named Ray Levin. Ray Levin had a booking agency called Transcontinental Productions, and he booked the Guess Who. He's the one that arranged for the Guess Who to go to England and play in England in 1967. There they are. They're arriving in England. He also managed and booked the Pink Plum. And that's Fred Turner, right there. Probably he became the Turner of Baffin Rover. And Sam Cates there with Bruce Rappo, Kevin Donnelly with Eric there. They ran Night Out Entertainment in the 1980s and 90s on Big Town. Warren Safer went to Grant Park, a year older than me. He's been Burton Company's manager since Burton went solo in 1976. And he's become very much a music mogul in entertainment in the States. And then there were club owners, like the Rainbow Dance Garden, which before that was the Aragon Ballroom. In the 1960s, it became Jay's Discotheque. And it was operated by a guy, a Jewish fellow named Jerry Huck. And that's now the Millennium Library. And you went upstairs to the dance. And there's the go-go dancers at Jay's Discotheque, some of the bands. Burton Cummings was the band, the Devrons, Jay's Discotheque, great place. This is the Twilight Zone, run by Dick Dolphin. And it was a nightclub in the same hotel. The Jewish impresario, there was bands playing there. And there was the fireplace, which started as a coffee house. And then it was Bruce Truxerman who ran it. And then they started booking bands. And one of the first bands they booked was a band I was in called Guitar. And we were loud and raucous and people liked it. So it became a rock and roll club. And then I had the fireplace. That was George and Zodiacs, of which I was in it. That's the guy with the hair. That's me doing the Chuck Berry dog walk. Yes, grandchildren, I did have hair. And when the drinking age lowered in September of 1970, two of the most swinging, lively, wildest pubs to play in were the Zoo, the Plaza, which was run by the Kitas family, and the Saint Hotel, which the only picture I could find, which was run by the Ginden family. And those were great places to play for when the pub scene took over. Mother's Records, Murray Posner ran Mother's Records on Portage Avenue, on the south side of Portage Avenue. Over 69, Norman Stein and Dave Glass. Norman Stein started it. I worked for Norman Stein when I was 15 going on 16. We had some kind of a deal with Strains, cameras and all that, which I think was the Western family. And he put a record bar in the back of Strains at Polo Park, and he stuck me in there to run it. And then at the time he was planning Opus 69, which became, he then sold out to Dave Glass, and Opus 69 became the biggest record store in Winnipeg. And Lillian Lewis Records on Portage Avenue at the north side. But I do want to point this out. You see this? You still there? That's your mom, right there. But Lillian Lewis Records was run by Lillian Lewis, who was a dancer with the RWB and I think a lot of productions at Rainbow Stage. I used to buy my 45s at a great 45s collection. I always thought that the kind of rather cranky old lady that were trying to pay for a record for Lillian Lewis. She was Lillian Lewis Samuel. Now, this is the Pumpkin Tree, who mean nothing really, but there were two Jewish guys in the band, Eddie Kantarovich and Henry Kreindler. The thing about Henry Kreindler is he went on to form an amplifier company called Bankbox. And they were one of the biggest sound system companies and amplifier companies in Western Canada for a number of years with Henry, who's still around. You can't tell. Sold over 150 million records. Oh, I mean, I'm not counting patty stackers and but they were huge. And they were right here in Winnipeg, and they mixed all their albums here in Winnipeg. And they were big. I mean, they weren't great for sound because they put 400 songs on one side and 400 on the other. The more tracks you had, the less the fidelity of the sound. But they used original artists for their song. And there's Phil Peebus, looking a lot like Arnold Schwarzenegger there, and his brother Ray Peebus, who's the business. And Phil used to, before Kinsey took off, Phil used to be there in Plaza Hotel. We used to never play there. And Phil had a switch at the back of the bar that turned off all the power on stage. So if you were too loud and the waitresses couldn't hear their orders, you'd find yourself in the middle of every song just going down. That was the hit. Like, bring it down, boys, bring it down. Now, in 1970, it was meant to be a centennial year, and on the centennial committee was a guy named Nathan Steinhoff. And he was put in charge of organizing an event for young people. And so, about 6 months before the event took place, there was an ad that ran in both newspapers saying, send in your favorite band. And in the end, it was Led Zeppelin and Our Butterfly, so they were organized to be there. But the guy who organized it and emceed it and announced that he came out at the start of the whole event. I know because we were the first act playing. And he said, we're going to show those squares, how to have a good time. And that's me playing there. And then it rained. And when it rained, that's when Maitland Steinhoff came through. He arranged to move the whole thing, lock, stock, and garnet into the arena. And Led Zeppelin had a rain clause that they didn't have to play. They'd still get their money. But he and Diane Henderson prevailed upon them to come and play, and they did. About 2 in the morning, they came and played because of Maitland Steinhoff. And Steinhoff rocks. He saved the day. I brought this for Stan. I keep it here for your archives. He saved the day for everybody. Maitland Steinhoff. He became a hero. Laurie Coyle, who was Barney Coyle's little brother, played in Harlequin. There, original Harlequin. And of course, as mentioned already by Len, The Watchmen, with Danny Reeves and that's a page here. That's Sam Connell. And Joe Sherwood. There we go. One of the hardest working bands in Canadian music in the 1980s and 90s. And Ariel Posen, who, according to his dad, just went and saw him performing with Tom Jones. And he is an amazing musician. First time I saw Ariel playing, I wanted to go home and burn my guitars. And Marty Stark, who's in Imagining Cities. She's a great singer, and again, another member of the Jewish community here in Winnipeg. She's there. And should you be so interested, because all this stuff, I have copies if you'd like to buy one happens to inside of it. And cast a wide net of all the different kinds of music that came out of it over the last century. Thank you. Your hair flash before it.
We're talking about the because she didn't say what she was so mad. I never was a great singer of the 60s, 70s, went on to drum, died much too early. But she was very powerful. She was very outspoken. When she found out that that's what we're going to use the claws, not like she went to the international, they were saying, went, knocked on their room, and I won't say the word that she said. She inspired them enough to go and back to the stadium. It was actually the arena at that time because of the rain, and they played because of her.
And there's one Canadian to that too. The manager of Led Zeppelin then turns to Maitland Steinhoff and says, "We need $25,000 American cash." It was midnight on a Saturday night. Sunday. Somehow Maitland Steinhoff left, came back half an hour later with a company for bed. For $25,000 American in cash.
Wow.
And I'll tell you one more story. I don't know if you were there, if you were. Led Zeppelin opened with a song no one had ever heard. They hadn't released it yet. It's called the Immigrant Song.
I wasn't there, but I did get to record Robert's Time, so that was amazing. I just want to Bill Wallace, who, of course, is we're going to have a conversation, many groups, which are now his brother, and he plays tuba now in Owen. Winnipeg Pop Orchestra. You should see them coming as they've got the case coming, the Winnipeg Pop Orchestra, and Bill Wallace will be on tuba. Okay, we would love to take questions from you. So if you
grand piano. And Britain used to come over and practice on the BB grand. At one point, Rail recorded
Should work.
a real tape, which actually
Again?
here.
No, it shouldn't.
That's the name of this one, and Rail is acknowledged in the footnote of the album.
Thank you. Great.
Sharon, and then
Hi. Oh, okay. So my cousin Bailey Rader and our good friend Ronnie Chirac, every Saturday for a few years, they would meet at the Rush Peanut, sing in the choir, have the kiddish lunch afterwards, take the bus to Portage Avenue, go to see a movie, and go to all the record stores. And finally, the day came where Ronnie gets a tap on the shoulder, his voice changed. So that sort of ruined their Saturday. And 3 weeks later, Bailey gets a tap on the shoulder. Voice changed. And you're right. She was the one that told him.
Well, so what did you change? Nothing good about that.
I was just wondering if any remember there was the Met Pop, that's out in the marketplace. But I guess in November 1970 there was the Mom and Pop Festival with I think Rudy Valley, I think Lionel Hampton, but I can't remember who else. It was the Royal Alex Hotel was reopened just for that event. So I was just wondering if any of you remember any about that and can fill in any of the details on that.
Owen?
By the way, my name is Steinkopf. My father was named.
Because Lionel Hampton, the only memory I have of Lionel was working with him at the concert hall. And that would have been like 79, 80, or 81. That was like the right time for it. No. It was a whole series of plus questions. And when Lionel spoke, he said he had a congress on it. So I got it. I don't understand classical orchestras if you're a drummer, you put it back. So we got to the rehearsal. I'm sitting in the back, Lionel starts to play, he plays about 10 bars. Wow! He turned around and looked at me and said, "What do you think?" He said, "We go back there." I said, "Well, that's where they told me to go." He said, "Get up here." I lugged all myself up to the front, sat down, the drummer's here, Lionel's here, I'm here for my choir. I'm ready to tune. Lionel heard the drummer, he says, "Get this guy's flame over. We're going to take him to the whoa, you're feeling hot. Oh, that's probably the night.
The question. I remember reading this years ago in the Free Press. It wasn't really well known before then. That one of the people who promoted music on a fairly big scale in Winnipeg for a brief time was Oscar Rupert, more famous for Kentucky Fried Chicken and Mother Tucker. But he apparently brought the Rolling Stones in Winnipeg in 1965 and attempted unsuccessfully to bring in the Beatles when they were doing a Canadian tour. And Oscar lived for many years in Garden City, as did I, and there was an urban myth, and I don't know if anyone knows whether this is true or not, that when the Rolling Stones came here, there was no hotel that would take them. They had their infamy preceding them, and that he had to put them up in his house in Garden City. Whether this is true or not, I don't know. Maybe someone does. But he definitely did promote Rolling Stones.
He stayed at the plaza.
That concert took in 1966. Tickets were $10. And there were about, it seemed like there were about 25 to 30 Winnipeg local groups that opened up for the Rolling Stones. They kept the lights on for the whole show. And when the Stones played, they only played for half an hour. And what sticks out most is that there was a fellow who climbed up onto the way up, he went up to the drapes on stage left, and he started climbing down. Everybody remembers that. And of course, everybody was charging the stage, mostly young girls. And at the end of the concert, everybody gathered outside where the doors were. They wanted to catch a glimpse of the rolling stone. Of course, they were long gone. But these huge trucks kept coming, and they were covered with cardboard or paper, brown paper on them. And people started ripping off them and said, Jen.
Hi, John, this is for you. You mentioned the Steiner brothers, and they weren't Jewish, by the way. Did you think they were Jewish?
I always thought they were Jewish.
No, they weren't Jewish. I worked with Ron Steiner for Augie Galford. And if you remember Augie Galford, he was a big promoter, and I asked him about Barbara Streisand. Because his question is, what happened with Barbara Streisand when she was here? Now,
He's the one that fired her.
yeah. Now, okay, so he told me two things. He said she was a dirty hippie, and he said she sang way too loudly. Now, I don't know whether those are true. Has anyone ever heard a different story? I know there have been various accounts of what happened with Barbara Streisand. Yeah. That's what Augie Galford told me. I worked with him until he fired me.
My mother is an actor, very realistic man. And I don't know how accurate my memory is of it, but I believe that she came in when Martin President was killed. So, yeah, he obviously hired him. But one of the famous stories that we do is that when you're trying to match her up with men, and I didn't go very well.
She was interviewed in one of the newspapers, and she made a comment about how she was really, it's a lovely club, a high-class club, but she was really surprised that the men wore short-sleeve shirts. And it's July in Winnipeg, and she was quite taken back by the fact that men wore short-sleeve shirts with a tie. She thought that was really gauche. And then the review in the paper when she was here said that when she sang, her arms flailed up through there. And audiences were kind of taken aback by her. And she didn't want to the audience.
Barbara also, George played, that Barbara would be in the middle of her show, and Augie would get on the house microphone. You know, he'd get on there and he'd say, Joey's family, table 4. Didn't matter what was happening. He didn't care. But he'd get on the mic and he'd say, get off the stage. And she'd yell at her, you know. Now, Barbara was very hippie. She didn't wear gowns like most of the acts did at that time. And one of her big tunes was the supermarket in Old Bombay. You ever heard that tune? No, nobody did. You know, Bobby was tearing out his hair because everybody didn't like her anymore. He couldn't hold himself back. He had to say, then she had the choice of tunes, her dress, her demeanor. She was fine with that. But Bobby, he just snapped. Go away.
Yeah, it's important to add to that. She was an unknown. I mean, she was like just anybody coming to Winnipeg. She was completely unknown. I would quibble with hippie because I would suggest that he might have called her a beatnik. The term hippie really doesn't come until later in the 60s. It certainly beatnik around that.
The controversy actually is what she actually fired. But we've all talked to people who George Resnick. I think what happened, he just didn't like it for the most part. I mean, he basically said that's the end of it and called Chicago, where her agency was, and said, I want her out of there. I want someone that's part of it.
Yes.
And when she brings up the musicians, I remember George Resnick saying, she had attitude. She really is there. She expected it to be a certain way. And what she heard, they could all play, they could all be very well, very fine. I don't know who the person was, but she did.
She stayed at the City Center Hotel, which was owned by my wife's family. It was all also, so my wife swam with her in the swimming pool. But I mean, it is just another person swimming.
6 degrees of separation.
Yeah. I've been milking that for years.
I'm not sure whether the story is really true or not, but I've heard a couple of times around Barbara's driving, and the reason why she only appeared in Winnipeg once as a town country and never again. I don't believe she's ever been in Winnipeg.
She said, and she did say when she left, I'll never come back here again.
Yeah,
And she has.
one may have been the interaction, you know, with the town country for another reason. She stood up on a date. And she apparently had some distant relatives in this day, I don't know who they are. And they set her up on a blind date with a friend of mine who lives in Vancouver, and she saw him 2 weeks ago. Ron Bronski. Ron was a curler. His brother Terry was a curler. And the night that he was set up for this date, blind date, with Barbara, his brother phoned him and said, I need someone to curl with me tonight. So he went curling and stood up Barbara's driving. Now the other part of the story, Ron swears that this is not true, and it was Ron Kleinfeld, who also lives in Vancouver now, or did live in Vancouver, that stood Barbara's driving up. But it appears as if she was stood up on a date, and that may have contributed to her revulsion with women.
Many of you might know, or maybe not, but if you Google Barbara's Drive in Winnipeg, you'll see a clip from the Tonight Show with Johnny Carson, where she actually talks about her visit. Check that out.
Yeah, but she lies. Because she said her agent got her a better gig, so she flew off Winnipeg to go take the better gig.
Sadly, we have time for a few more questions.
I want to make this one.
I just want to say that you mentioned the city center hotel, and my friends and I, luckily, thankfully, followed the Four Seasons one night after one of their concerts to the city center. And I'm wondering if you know if they put up other musicians.
That's news to me. No, I don't know. I heard about it at Rolling Stones and City Plaza all the time. Down on Hospital Street, every year, 6. I don't like the Four Seasons. I was playing the city center for a month in September of 1970, drinking years older. And it was a significant, I was still only 17 at the time, so I still wasn't even old enough to be in there. But it was an amazing change, just the whole attitude of crowds changed that.
And that's from Winnipeg. But I lived here for a long while, and after we got there originally, I don't live here anymore. So I just have a recollection. The fourth dimension was mentioned a couple of times. My recollection was that in the early 60s, when it existed, there were some great groups there, but at the end of the night, maybe when it closed at 1 or 1:30, a bunch of jazz musicians from the city. And there was a piano player from the city center who would come, and they would jam for a couple of hours. This was 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. I was there one evening, and it was packed. And it was a regular thing.
Yeah, I just looked it up because I looked up, the fourth dimension was my second home when I was growing up in Winnipeg. So I ended up emceeing many nights. So yeah, there were some spontaneous jam sessions that was nice. People would come to play. So there's 3 states, 3 nights nowadays, where people would say, well, I don't know there. Neil would show up, Young would show up. Any number of people, any group that not possible. It's interesting that you mentioned Canada because Canada said on the day, there's a 3/4 dimension talking of is that had enough left to bring in acts from the U.S. I think that myself, that was pretty amazing. storytelling artist who played music. Yeah, the 4D. Right. As we all knew it, paid by the hour. And then and in the after hour, I'm not sure that there were that many jam sessions that were. But yes, that's where it could have happened. Stephen Stills played 4D when he was still an overage. Johnny Mitchell, Neil Young, Johnny Mitchell, and Donald Plank. Donald Plank played 4D.
There was also a transition period between it being dark place and the 4D. And that's when the group that was in there with Frank Kinsey on piano, Corey Kowalski on drums. I remember his name was Huey Curry, and the trumpet player named John. But anyway, they were the kind of transition group. We would go there after our gig. So then he would show up, Mike Lewis, Myron, the Mike Lewis was down there at the city center. He would come to the place. This became kind of a little after hours thing. This was after the stage tour closed in 1961. So we would
I remember when I was playing in Toronto in the early 70s, the Jimmy Cricker shoot, it was a big deal. And they had a lounge in the basement, and my group was playing there. My wife remembers him from the city center. It was Myron Markowitz or something like that.
Now, I was in grade 10 at Rudy Kinsey, and he and I were not great students, that's for sure. We didn't share a lot of our intellect with anyone. And I always remember this. If you remember Bernie, here we were in grade 10, and he was in British history, writing out notes like the nation. He was so upset with music. And of course, he like something he went east with Toronto. And the last time I saw Bernie, he was playing on a bar bench. From a bar with his band. With his own band. This was some years ago. But remember him in grade 10. Writing about music. He was good to be in. I presume he still is.
There's another comment I wanted to make, like saying something that's wonderful about this. It's kind of a moment in my music career. I was working at Channel one night at Trail, and our singer was telling me, I'd love to do some kind of a concert at the auditorium. And the demo was written. So what evidence so that was my first full work tonight, and Jerry Peterson was well. But anyway, Roy Petty, our singer, was a black singer from Texas, big voice, very charismatic singer. And the other guy on the show, the Posen show, but anyway, we're the opening act. The Burning Shot Trio, and Roy Petty. And, we're used to getting marvelous applause. So we do this, and I hear, we're in trouble here. We did another couple of minutes. That's all we heard. So we finished our set. I think we did for 5 minutes. Next up was the demo. Yay! People screaming, yelling, jumping up and down. I thought, what's going on here? Our little sort of jazzy group and the stand-up macho singer type. Not going to cut here. This is a change. I saw a huge change coming in the music world.
That's why I think I got
to get on this. I got to go into something else.
Owen's brother, his younger brother Bob, playing with Neil Young and the Squires.
As a memory, while the rock bands were taking into the community centers. It was the church halls that had the folk music happening. And both seemed to have their own little market until the NDP government decided to drop the drinking age to 18 by votes. And that absolutely killed the folk scene on the church.
Well, I did a lot of those church basements. As a matter of fact, I just played at the Oak Street Mennonite Church. I sang one of their services. I sang a song in Hebrew, and for part of it, an morning service. And I supposedly played in that church back in the late 60s. There was a coffee house there.
The Latin word.
Yes, I played there. Okay.
Jim Donahue presided the band, and the Donahue piece with Jim Donahue and a lot of
Does anyone remember Mendel Malkin? David Stone? Just talented people, very, very sweet people. They were part of the scene, the folk scene that I was part of as well.
The folk scene was actually quite new. There were in 68, late 67, 68, 69, there were many, many coffee houses in churches. The Wing Dots, which was the state roof, which is the whole street united. The wine, I believe had one.
Oh, yeah.
There were quite a few. And there was a whole circus that people would play. Sometimes it was a bit of rock, but for the most part it was like that.
It was very eclectic. I remember playing all these coffee houses. We would play blues, Jim Donahue would play folk music. Billy Graham and his trio North would be playing jazz, and Ian Gardner was playing with them. They on the TV ever bass player. The Chicken Flat String Band with bluegrass and like it was a lot of fun.
Remember the all-you-can-eat buffet, 99 cents? Right across on the wall road. So the owner of that was Mickey Cooper, and he bought the Fourth Dimension chain of the original owner. He also went and bought Silver Children.
Didn't Charlie Clement run?
Yeah,
Sally Speed kept Charlie.
And there was, he still always walking,
Imagine if you had a thing out that I did by one But before we get to the perfectionist, I understand it's going to be a recreation of the Chinese trade. I'd like to thank everybody involved. Clark, and Udow.
The microphone is wandering off, but I'll try to recreate my teacher's voice, and hopefully we can get back. Thank you, Kinsey, John, Ben, and Owen, for this wonderful panel. I didn't grow up in Winnipeg, and one of the things I really like here is the interaction, the 0.6 degrees of separation, and all about it. I'd also like to thank the people behind the scenes who make this work. Technician Steve Getz, Jennifer Boney of the Jewish Heritage Center, and Andrew Morrison, who put together various other aspects of it. The Huebner, who coordinated the arrangements with Temple Shalom, and Temple Shalom generally, for its wonderful hospitality, for this program, a preceding program on the Czech Torah scrolls to survive the Holocaust in Kinsey, Winnipeg, and I'm sure other programs in the future. So thank you, Temple Shalom. I'll mention Phil's feedback. We can stand up for a second. Phil, if anybody needs an elevator to get downstairs to the refreshments, see Phil. He has the key, and he'll get you down. And I just pop it in afterwards. I'll just mention very briefly that this ends basically ends the program series for the Jewish Heritage Center will pick up again in the fall with a variety of programs, possibly one on classical music, a celebration of the contributions of the Roger Siskin to the Jewish Heritage Center and Jewish life in general in Winnipeg. We have a program in December with Emma Weisman, Carol Davis, and Harry